Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Giants' first base position and kind of their options going into next year. And the question that so many people have been asking of, will Bryce Eldridge actually be the Giants' opening day first baseman? Which, obviously, right now, it's a bit early to tell that. We got to get through the offseason. We got to get to see what kind of moves they make, get to spring training, see how he does in spring training, so on and so forth. But it's a pretty interesting question. And then also, for anybody that did read the Andrew Baggerly article in The Athletic, there are some nuggets in there that kind of, for those of you that like to read the tea leaves a little bit, like I do, that there are some indications that very well might just be what they're really heavily considering doing, as well as some of their actions that they've taken at the end of the season here. But to start it off, as always, for anybody that does enjoy the content, please do hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We just cleared up over 900 subscribers, so thank all of you so much. As we've said on past live shows, we are going to do a giveaway when we hit 1,000 subscribers. At 950, we will announce what items we're going to be doing for the giveaway. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for future notifications, all that good stuff. But I appreciate all of you. The support has been amazing. But now back to the Giants. They really have kind of three main options I see, because realistically, I don't see Vladdy Jr. as an option, not this offseason. I don't see Pete Alonso coming. Frankly, I just don't think that's happening. Even a guy like Christian Walker, who I think would be an excellent fit in the lineup. He's a really good defender at first base. Like, he would make this team better. I don't necessarily see that happening because I do think the Giants don't want to sign anyone long term or to a multi-year contract at first base where they could potentially end up blocking Bryce Eldridge. So I see really only three options. They're either going to sign a stopgap, a Carlos Santana, Paul Goldschmidt type, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. Either of those guys has the potential to be, a solid bat hitting in 5 or 6 spot in the lineup. They can be a contributor. Now, that's not the only bat you want to see them get. Ideally, they get someone else, but it does leave the door open with the DH in the NL, that it leaves the door open that you could potentially DH one of those guys for half the season or whatever if you decide Bryce Eldridge needs more time, and then you call him up mid-season. The second option is you roll with the Flade or, Canna Wade platoon, or you put together some kind of platoon. I think they would need to at least upgrade the right-handed side of the platoon. But they could do that again. It's probably the least exciting of the options. Wade is just very average defensively at first base. He's a solid role player. I don't have anything against Wade as a player. I just don't think he is a starting first baseman. The fact that you have your starting first baseman chipping in 6 home runs and 30 to 35 RBIs, like, that's just not good enough in today's game. So the Giants need to improve there somewhere. So I don't like that option. Now, granted, had Wilmer Flores been healthy and producing even 80% of what he did in 2023, we probably wouldn't be worried about that spot, but he didn't. He was injured, and he is hitting his mid 30s, and I just don't think you can comfortably bet on him going back and replicating a career year that he had. So I don't like that option. I would actually prefer personally that they go get a Goldschmidt or Santana to that option and let Wade be a, left-handed bench piece where he would probably still play a decent amount, but kind of play the corner outfields occasionally, play first base occasionally, maybe DH him every now and then to get him at bats. He'd be a really good pinch hit option off the bench. He would have value in that role, but that would be option number 2. And then option number 3 is kind of this, what I thought was absolutely insane earlier in the year, but option number 3 is Bryce Eldridge is your opening day first baseman. So how feasible is that? Well, let's start off. Bryce Eldridge, he's 20 years old. He just turned 20 on October 20th. So he's going to be in his age 20 season in 2025. He's the number 35 prospect currently on the MLB top 100. That ranking has just been steadily climbing, and his production in the fall league and down the stretch, I wouldn't be shocked if he's top 25, maybe even top 20 by the time next season rolls around. But he is easily their highest ranked prospect by quite a bit. I think James Tibbs is the second on at like number 88 on the top 100. So that's kind of where he is there. What he did this last season across 4 levels, he had 446 at bats, hit 291, 23 home runs, 52 total extra base hits. It was 27 doubles and 2 triples along with that, 92 RBIs, and finished with an 890 OPS across 4 levels. Played in 116 games. Those games got split up by 51 in A ball, 48 in high A, 9 in double A, 8 in triple A. Obviously, those last 2 levels, they were very brief. They were just trying to get him more and more reps and let him finish out the season. Defensively, he played 872 innings at first base. He committed 18 errors, 977 fielding percentage. And then he went over to the fall league. Now, in that Baggerly article, Kyle Haynes, the Giants farm director, he does kind of break down a lot of their decision making there. And he flat out said the reason they sent him to the fall league was to get more reps and experience at first base. It's not because they felt like he needed more at bats. It's not that they, now that's a benefit. You're playing against probably a higher level of competition. It's more equivalent to like the upper levels of the minors level of competition in the fall league, but you're going to get to play first base and get to work with some of the different coaches. So they brought out Will Clark, Ron Wotus, and Dennis Pelfrey, who's the AA manager, who all went over there and worked pretty extensively with him in his few weeks down in the fall league. Now, Clark did come back, and then on his podcast, he mentioned that Bryce Eldridge was super tired and exhausted and kind of had that. You could tell even Clark was like, this guy needs to stop. Like it's too hot in Arizona. He's losing weight. Like we got to get this guy to the offseason. He's done enough. He's shown enough this season. But that was the reason they put him there. Now, where the nugget kind of falls is, Haynes elaborated, said with Posey now as the president, they're going to want more well-rounded players. And he dropped kind of an interesting quote here where they asked him, will Eldridge be fast-tracked to the big leagues? Because Haynes did say that he does feel too many players are getting fast-tracked and guys need to, quote, defeat each level before moving on, which, and he does elaborate on that. Like, you can defeat a level doesn't necessarily mean your batting average and home runs are great or ERA is great. Like, you just, the way you're going about your business, you can show that you belong and you're ready for the next challenge. But they asked him, will he be fast-tracked to the big leagues in 2025? And he said, that's a really good question for Buster Posey, Haynes said with a laugh. The one thing I'm certain of, he's going to have to develop in the big leagues in some areas. But when players put on a Giants uniform at Oracle Park, we don't want them to have big league skills in some areas and playing at an A-ball level in others. Now, that kind of speaks a bit of volumes of some of the guys they have currently, on the roster. Guys like Marco Luciano, who, he probably had, as far as plate discipline goes and things like that, he was pretty level, or he was pretty ready. But, defensively really far off. And Marco didn't hit a ton, so that maybe that's not the best example, but, Casey Schmidt, glove was clearly ready, bat was not. Patrick Bailey, glove was clearly ready, bat arguably is not. There are a lot of guys that you could kind of make that case for, but just similar to what Kyle Haynes said, they're going to have to develop some things at the major league level. And the fact that they're putting so much work into his defense and they put such an emphasis on this late in the season to get him to stretch out his season, to get more at bats or to get more, reps at first base, and a bit, also the at bats are a benefit, but to do all this stuff to try and get him more time does kind of make you think they're going to really give him a serious look in spring training and see if he is ready to contribute next season. Now, where we're going to go with this is like, how feasible is it? Well, the guy I like to compare him to, even though they play different positions, and you guys may have heard me mention him on the previous live shows, is Jackson Merrill. with the Padres, who was in his age 20 season. He turned 21, I think, towards the beginning of the season. Or sorry, he was in his age 21 season. He was 20 on opening day, turned 21 after the season started. Jackson Merrill had all of 211 plate appearances, or 215 plate appearances, I think, in Double A, had 0 in Triple A. So he skipped Triple A entirely. Bryce Eldridge had 75 plate appearances between Double A and Triple A. So yes, it's not as many. Then he went to the Fall League, got 10 more games, 46 more plate appearances. He hit 293 with 2 home runs, 5 extra base hits, 6 RBIs over in the Fall League, 860 OPS. The bat showed. Bat showed it's ready still. He very well may just be a guy that doesn't need the extra time in the upper levels of the minors. Now, if they decide they want to, I get it. But where I'm going with this is Merrill, if you kind of count Fall League as an upper levels of the minors, Merrill will really only have about 80 more plate appearances than Bryce Eldridge in the upper levels, or 80 to 90 more plate appearances. So is it doable? I mean, absolutely. I just, the only thing that I care about is when you do make the decision to bring Bryce Eldridge up, whether that's opening day, whether that's May, whether that's end of the season, whatever the case may be, whenever they do make that decision, it needs to be a commitment. Like you can't waffle on this. You can't put him on the taxi squad. You can't jerk him around. We can't do this. He needs to be up, playing every day, and let him go. And I mean the entire season. I don't care how ugly it gets. He's going to go through struggles. But if you're going to do that, if that is the route they're going to go, they need to play him every day. But I look at a guy like Merrill and I see what he did, where he started a little slower, got going, and by the end of the year, he was phenomenal for the Padres. There's no reason to believe that Bryce Eldridge might not be, he might be capable of doing something similar. He may go through some struggles. It may take him a couple months. He might just kind of flash here and there. He's been kind of a slow starter at most levels. High A was probably the exception where he absolutely blitzed to that level. But, A ball, Double A, a little bit slower starts, got going. Now, Double A was very quick. He got a slow start, and they kind of had like 2 or 3 good games, and then they moved him up to Triple A. But it's kind of his reputation a little bit, is a bit of a slow start, gets going once he figures out kind of how they're attacking him and all those different things. So it'll be really interesting. I think there is a pathway for him. I don't necessarily have a preference. I really love to see Bryce as fast as possible, as much as the next person, but I do want them to be confident that he's ready, and I do want it to be you bring him up and he's the first baseman going forward, period. I don't want this to turn into them trying to figure out where they're gonna, he starts playing less and less, and then they start sending him down. I just don't want to see that stuff. So, just an interesting, article all around. I wanted to kind of touch base on this situation. Tell me what you guys think. I definitely understand kind of both sides of the coin. We'll see. At the end of the day, spring training is going to say a lot. He's surely going to be in big league spring training. And if he does well start to finish, I would just not be surprised in the slightest if he's the opening day first baseman. So tell me what you guys think. We'll definitely be having a live show this week, probably on Friday night, if I had to guess. We'll try and get all of us together. Hopefully we will, maybe we'll know who the GM is by now or by then. We'll see one way or the other. Maybe we won't. It sounds like, Pavlovich dropped a nugget in his pod, in his show that he does with Cole Kuiper. He dropped a nugget that the Giants already know might already know who their GM is and are waiting to announce it until after the World Series, which is something that Major League Baseball prefers they do. So who knows? They might already know it. We'll find out. But catch you all later. Go Giants, and see you next time.